A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. I'd like to start by saying Assalamu alaikum to everyone here. Now, yesterday we discussed the Battle of Karbala in quite some detail, and today we're just going to very briefly touch on the aftermath of the Battle of Karbala and the lessons that we can learn from Karbala.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم ومن والاه. My dear respectful brother, Jazakallah khairan, I was under the impression I would only be the only person here because I thought yesterday you got all the information that you need and there was no need, but Alhamdulillah, I just want to say thank you very much, Jazakallah khairan, for your commitment and your dedication over the whole 10 days. It's extremely difficult to get commitment from someone to come for 1-2 days, but for 10 days it's an achievement, alhamdulillah, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you and give you ajr. I was looking at the recordings and alhamdulillah there's like close to 20 hours, and that's 20 hours after editing. So alhamdulillah, I think it's been a good benefit, alhamdulillah, and we can benefit. And also Brother Imam Hussain, he's done over 22,000 notes, letters, or sorry, words in notes. So it's a good achievement, alhamdulillah. Something good comes from that, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward him and reward all of us. Yesterday, whenever you speak about the Battle of Karbala, I was saying to Uthman yesterday that, especially when I was researching through 4 or 5 major texts. One is Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya, a fantastic text. Ibn Athir's version is one of the best by far. It's like one whole volume just on Karbala, one full volume. It's the most detailed available. It's not available in English, which is a pity, but it's a masterpiece. I said whenever you read about Karbala, the Battle of Karbala, and you go across the oppression that happens, immediately just tears come down your eyes, and these are just reading it and realizing the zulm that was perpetrated against these innocent people. For no reason apart from standing up for justice and haq. So we know that, and we know the crimes that were committed against Imam Hussain radiyallaho anhu and his family, and there's no need for me to reiterate or repeat that. But a few points I want to make. One is, after the aftermath of Karbala was, and this is a correction for myself because I read a narration which was incorrect. And because I was rushing it because of time, I made a mistake. The mistake is that there was 88 of the enemies that were killed and 72 members of Imam Hussein's party. So that's a correction from yesterday. I wanted to highlight that, and it's best to make that correction. So it's 88 of Umar bin. It's just the other way around. This narration was mentioned somehow in Ibn Kathir's work, and I never looked at it properly, but he was mentioning it was weak earlier, and I just looked at the numbers because time was limited. I just wrote the numbers down straight away. But when I went to the text today reading it, Ibn Athir said it was 72. So that was something I want to correct. So when all of these people are martyred on the Battle of Karbala, and they are martyred, 72 heads, 72 bodies. So 72 bodies are there, and 72 heads are taken off, and all of those heads are then sent via different people to go to Ibn Ziyad, who is the governor of Kufa. Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu warda, his honorable head, the narration says, was given to a guy called Khawla, and Khawla, he was given the task of taking this to Ibn Ziyad. This was like a medal for them, a'udhu billah. It just shows you the understanding of these people, how narrow-minded they were, how selfish they were, how they never had no consideration for the goodness of Islam and the goodness of what Islam stood for. That the only thing that they were worried about was treasures of dunya. And even if they submitted to Imam Hussain, those treasures would have been theirs. Al-Hussain radiallahu anhu, didn't he say to Umar bin Sa'ad, join me? and he said, he's going to destroy my house, Ibn Ziyad. Imam Hussain says, I'll give you a better house in Hijaz. And then he said, I'm going to lose all my wealth. Imam Hussain says, I'll give you my wealth. I'll give you the wealth from the Ahlul Bayt. So I mean, these people could very easily would have reap the rewards of the dunya and the akhirah, but because of their selfishness and because man in his nature is selfish. This is something Imam Jafar Sadiq mentions, which Qadi Ayad mentions in Ash-Shifa bi Ta'rif al-Huquq al-Mustafa, the book which I bought on the first day. He says that the nature of man is rebelliousness. Man in his nature is a person who rebels against goodness. It's in his nature, and having that nature in person, that's the reason why man is not perfect, and that is why Allah then perfects him and makes him into a better person. And this is the nature of these people. They want dunya, they don't want the life of the next world. And what Khawla does, he takes his head to the governor. At that time when he arrives at the governor, the house or the palace was closed. So then he goes home, and look at his audacity. He goes home and he's happy. And what he does with the honorable head of Imam Hussain radiyallaho anhu, he puts it under the wash basin in his house. And he had two wives, and one was a Hadri woman from Hadramut from Yemen, and one was another woman. And at that night it was the woman from Yemen that he was supposed to spend the night with, and he calls her over, and she says, "What have you bought? Why are you happy?" And he says, "Oh, I bought the head of Hussain radiallahu anhu." And she turns around to, this is his wife. She says, "Men bring gold and silver to the house, and you've bought the head of the Apostle of Allah to our house?" That from all things, you could have bought gold, you could have bought anything, but you bought the head of the Apostle, the son of Fatima, to Zahra salamullah alayha. You bought that to our house. I mean, don't you have any fear? Don't you have any a recompense? Don't you have any type of fear in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what you've done? And she said, I leave you. And she abandoned him, and he went his own way. Now she spends the whole night in that room where Imam Hussein's honorable head is. And there's a narration which Imam Muhammad ibn Jarir al-Tabri mentions, and Ibn Asir also mentions it in his Tariq. They say that the woman said, "Wallahi, as the head was in her kitchen," one narration says, or out part of the house, one narration says, she said, "I could see light going from the skies, light nur coming onto it." She said some type of nur, some type of light that was unnatural, extraordinary, was penetrating the property and penetrating the honorable head of Imam. She says, "When I looked up, I saw birds singing and doing tawaf, or flicking, fluttering around it, fluttering around and singing and happiness." She says, "When I saw this, I knew this person was unique." There's another narration which is a weak narration, some ulama have said, but whether it's true or not, wallahu alam, Allah knows best, that Imam Hussain was reading the Quran, even in that state. Again, whether that's one of the things with Karbala you have to understand is there's a lot of fiction, there's a lot of superstition, should we say. There's a lot of issues which are not factual, that people just narrated these events as legend. So it's extremely important that when we come across this honorable life, we understand what it is. So that's what happens. In the morning, he then takes the head to Ibn Ziyad. And when he enters into Ibn Ziyad's majlis, at that time he's already in the public gathering. One narration says that the women of the Ahlul Bayt have already arrived. One of the things that you have to understand is these people were animals. They weren't human beings. They had no, for someone to violate a baby like Ali Askar radiallahu anhu, they have no humanity in them. And one of the things that Allah protected was the izzah of the women of the Ahlul Bayt. That is a beautiful thing. That was like Imam Al-Dimishqi said that's one of the limits that Allah had. That was a limit of the dhulm that could be perpetrated upon the Ahlul Bayt, was that their women would not attack in a disgusting way. Allah kept their honor radiallahu wa ridwanallahu alayhim ajma'in, and that was unique towards them. Number two is that the women are you have Lubab radiallahu anha, the wife of Hussein, you have Sukayna, his daughter, you have Zainab, his sister, and other servants and women of the Ahlul Bayt. All of them are in dirty clothes now. Number one, they don't have a veil. The veil's been taken off them. Their hair is open. This is the evilness of these people, that not only did they want to humiliate Imam Hussain and kill him radiyallaho anhu and martyr him and inflict so many oppression upon him, not only that wasn't enough, what they then did was they stamped over his body, stampede against his body with horses. One narration says 12, one narration says 10 horses. There's different narrations, but that wasn't even enough there. And what they then did was they continued on. What was the continuation? Was that then they looted Imam Hussain. They looted his caravan. They went into his tents where the women were. They looted the shawl that he had, the property he had, the turbans he had, the sword he had, everything that belonged to it. They just looted it like barbaric people, animals, uncivilized individuals. That even the worst of human being has more civilization than these people. Because even non-Muslims don't even behave in this manner. There's rules of war. There's rules of engagement. There's ways of when you fight someone. You don't attack the women. You don't attack the children. You don't attack the tents. You don't attack the messengers. You don't attack the servants. But for these people, it was all about what? What was their purpose? Their whole purpose was what? Was to humiliate Imam Hussain. It wasn't just for a reward. Because they knew that reward would come from Yazid and the reward would come from Ibn Ziyad. But the funny thing was, these narrow-minded people, none of them got a reward. There was only some of the elite people amongst them, Shimr, may Allah curse him, people like Umar bin Sa'ad, these people that gained a reward from Ibn Ziyad. So the head Mubarak of Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu is brought to Ibn Ziyad. And Ibn Ziyad, he looks at it and he starts laughing. One narration says first that even Ibn Ziyad, when he saw the head, after all the dhulm and oppression and the injuries that he suffered, after all the afflictions that he went through, Ibn Ziyad was even taken back with the beauty of Hussain in that state. Even in that state still, Imam Hussain was extremely handsome, extremely beautiful. And the narration says, that the Kufans narrate, is that head had an extremely, it had around it an aura. Some people have that beauty around them. When you look at them, there's an aura around them, some nobility around them. And they said that head, even though Imam Hussain had been killed, had been martyred, he still had that aura that he was still alive. That's something unique. It was different from every other type of head that was there. He had many heads that were there. And what he does is he has a cane, one narration says, in his hand, and one says a stick, and he begins to hit the lips of Imam Hussain. One narration said, this is the level, and it doesn't shock you for someone to curse Ali, for someone to curse Ahlul Bayt, for someone to curse the people, where the revelation came to their house. The Prophet was from them. The deen started in their house, and he starts hitting the honorable head of Imam Hussain radiallahu ta'ala anhu, and he starts laughing. And then there's a Sahabi called Zayd bin Arkam. There's another narration which said there was another Sahabi radiallahu anhu. There's different narrations. He turns around and says, move your stick away from that person for Allah. For by Allah I swear I saw with my own eyes Rasulullah used to kiss them lips. These were the lips that used to kiss the Prophet. These were the lips that when he was born. The narration is quite unique that when Imam Hussain is born, like his father, I don't know if you all know this, but Imam Ali was born radiallahu anhu. He was born in the Kaaba. Sayyidina Ali was born in the Kaaba. His mother is a giant personality in Islam. And unfortunately people don't know nothing about her, which is sad. But she is one of the most, she is the only person in the history of Islam whom the Prophet lay in her grave. The Prophet never lay in no one's grave. And the Prophet then gave his shirt to her as a kafan, as a shroud when she passed away. And one of the reasons that he did that was why? Was because he wanted to repay the favor. Now when the Prophet was adopted in the house of Abu Talib radiallahu anhu, his uncle Abu Talib radiallahu ta'ala anhu, what did she used to do? When the Prophet was cold, she used to have a cloak, and she used to warm the cloak and tell the Prophet to wait and don't enter the cloak, let me warm it first. Once it was warm, then she would call him, and her own son she wouldn't call him. She would only call the Prophet ﷺ. And that is what you call a love of an auntie. And then she used to cover him, and she used to kiss him and love him, and she used to make the Prophet feel as comfortable as possible. That is why when she passed away, and her grave right now is in Jannat al-Baqi, towards, when you enter it, is towards the left side. And if you ask anyone, her grave is right next to Abu Dharr al-Ghifari radiyallaho anhu's resting place. I've seen it myself, but you can actually see it even from the main road when you go to Jannat al-Baqi. If you ask any of the people who are in there, not the ones who are the guardians and I'm not saying ask them, because they just say no one's buried here. And I remember when I went to Jannat al-Baqi once, and I said to one of the, he's a Pakistani pretending to be an Arab. This is a very sad reality that people learn a bit of Arabic and they forget the whole culture. And you shouldn't really forget where you're from. You should be proud, mashallah. You should have that, that honesty of being happy that you're from a land called Hind, a land called India. That blessed place where the Prophet said, "I feel the cool breeze from Al-Hind." That's what the Prophet said, "I feel the cool breeze from Al-Hind." And great Allah's awliya come from that land. Some of the most unique people that ever walked in this earth. So I said to this guy, he's speaking Arabic, and I said that this was near the Azwaj, the Prophet's honorable wives. I said, is Aisha buried here radiallahu anha? And he said, no one's buried here. I said, I said, someone's buried here. There must be someone here. He said, no one's buried here. I said, what do you mean no one's buried here? He said, just go on, no one's buried here. And then I went to the grave of Imam Malik. Imam Malik is buried right next to his teacher radiallahu anhu. And they're both right there, and Nafi'a is there, and Malik is there radiallahu anhu. And I asked him, I said, is that Imam Malik? I'm just teasing him. And his face goes so red. And I'm like saying to the guy, I said, what's up with you? Is there an issue that you're becoming? I'm only asking you where the graves are of the Imams. And then after Imam Malik, you have the grave of Ibrahim, the Prophet's son, radiallahu anhu. And Ibrahim is that child so unique that in one view, Imam Malik's view, which is narrated by some ulama, they believe that Sayyidati Fatima salamullah alayha and Ibrahim alayhi salam, after all the prophets, they were the greatest of all human beings to ever live. Then two people, both brother and sisters, both brother and sister was the greatest of Allah's creation after all the prophets. So you can see that understanding. So obviously don't ask them where that resting place is. If you ask any other people, they'll tell you this is Fatima, the mother of, and her name was Fatima too. So his auntie was called Fatima, his wife was called Fatima. Subhanallah, it's a unique quality to have. It's an amazing quality to have, and she is such a giant personality. She's the person. And so when Sayyidina Ali was born, going back to the point, Sayyidina Ali did not open his eyes at all. When he was born, he did not open his eyes. And then the Prophet ﷺ came to him and picked him up. This is his cousin. And the Prophet loves him from day one. When he sees him, he falls in love with him. And the Prophet picks him up and looks at him and smiles. And when he's holding Ali in front of him, immediately Ali opens his eyes. The first thing Sayyidina Ali sees in this world is the face of Rasulullah ﷺ. Imagine that. And then Ali lives in the house of the Prophet. So Ali is the one who's jumping on the Prophet, not Hussain first. First is Ali. Who's his mother, if you want to call it in one way. Who's bringing him up, who's feeding him is Khadija al-Kubra. Can you imagine being brought up in the house of Khadija al-Kubra? She is such a giant personality in Islam. She's such a woman that from all of the Prophet's wives, the Prophet loved her the most. And Aisha herself says it in a hadith in Bukhari. Aisha says, Ya Rasulullah, you love Ali more than my father, and you love Khadija more than me. And the Prophet smiled and said, yes, I do. Because you can't be like Khadija. Khadija is unique. She's the first Muslimah. The first believer in Islam is his wife. And the wealth that Hazrat Abu Bakr gave is unbelievable. His contribution to Islam is in no way second to anyone. But even his contribution does not match the contribution that Khadija gave to her husband. That was something different. Because one day the Prophet came and said, I want to spend in zakat and I want to give money in the way of Allah, but I have nothing. I have nothing to give. And Khadija says, don't be afraid, this is my money. Give this. And he says, I can't do, that's not my money. She said, it's your money now, I'm giving it to you. So that is the love she had. So you can imagine being brought up in the house of whom? The house of Ali, of Khadija al-Kubra. So the same thing, Imam Hussain is the one that when he's born, the Prophet picks him up and the Prophet brings him right next to him and gives him his tongue. Abu Bakr is the one who did what? Abu Bakr radiyallaho anhu arda is the one who is the Prophet's mounting on top of him. The Prophet is using him to mount. The Prophet is sitting on him. But who is the one who is mounting the Prophet? Who uses the Prophet as a mount? That is Hassan and Hussain. You can imagine that beauty he had. And that is why one narration even goes even further. That they said, Ya Rasul, do you love Hassan and Hussain even more than their mother and father? And the Prophet said, I love them more than their mother and father. That is the love he had for them. And that is the connection he had. And that is the reason why when he starts poking the honorable teeth and the honorable lips of Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu, there's no iman in him. And then what he does, he turns to Ali Asghar, sorry, Imam Zain al-Abidin, sorry, who was the middle. He was called Ali too. All three brothers were called Ali. His title is Zain al-Abidin or Imam al-Sajjad. And Sajjad, why? Because he used to pray so much. Now I don't know if you know this. This is mentioned by Ustad Abu Zuhra, rahmatullah alayhi. Who's Ustad Abu Zuhra? I don't know if you all know Pir Karam Shah, rahmatullah alayhi, from Pakistan. It was his teacher from Egypt. His teacher from Egypt. And he's drawn many books on the Aim of the Ahlul Bayt. He's a great scholar from Egypt, an Egyptian. He wrote a book on the life of Imam Zain al-Abidin in Arabic. It's a beautiful book about the life of Zain al-Abidin. And he says that the first Islamic university that was made was the University of Zain al-Abidin. Because what happened was when Imam Zain al-Abidin came back to Medina, he was prohibited to teach. He was prohibited to preach, and he was prohibited to hold any gathering. And this isn't the way the Aim of the Ahlul Bayt, behave. It's in their blood to teach. So what he used to do is he used to go to the market and he would buy 300 slaves. And he would take the slaves home. He would teach them and then he would free them. And he never asked them to do jobs for me. Do this job for me, clean the house, look, no. He says, and they used to say to him, why have you bought us? Because they're like, okay, they're honored to be serving Imam Zain al-Abidin, but when they come to the house, he says, okay, sit down, you got to study. So he's teaching them reading and writing. And they're thinking, this guy just bought us, and he's now teaching us reading and writing. And Imam Zain al-Abidin had taught them. So they said the first Islamic university, unofficially, was the University of Imam Zain al-Abidin. It was the first collective teaching, and from that was whom? His student was who? His son, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir. And Imam Muhammad al-Baqir and Imam Jafar al-Sadiq, both father and son, are the teachers of Imam Abu Hanifa. Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala studied with his father, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, but he also studied with Imam Jafar al-Sadiq. Imam Malik was also a student of Imam Jafar al-Sadiq. And that's why I mentioned what Imam Abu Hanifa said, that if Nu'man never spent 2 years with Ja'far, Nu'man would be nothing. That's exactly what Abu Hanifa said. He says that I learned everything in 2 years from that man. So these people don't realize the unique ability or the unique quality of the Ahlul Bayt, because they don't have the fear of Allah, they have no fear. So he turns to Ali, this person called Zain al-Abidin. Again, I'm explaining more about you because I won't get this opportunity again with you. So as I can, I'll give you as much virtues of these people, because people don't know who Zain al-Abidin and these people are. So he turns to Zain al-Abidin and he says to him, who is that man? And they say his name is Ali ibn Hussain. Ali ibn Hussain. He says, wasn't he killed? Wasn't he killed? And they turn around and he kept quiet. He says, I'm asking you, don't you speak? And Imam Zain al-Abidin says, that was my brother that you killed. That was my brother. And he laughed. He just laughed. And he said, oh, that was a punishment from Allah. For death comes. And then he says to him, he's waiting for a reply. Look at the reply from Imam Zain al-Abidin. He says that he died and that's a good thing. Imam Zain al-Abidin turns around and says, death comes to us all. It was the decree of Allah. And we submit to the decree of Allah. And you can imagine how emotional he was, that he could have said a lot of things. And then Ibn Ziyad says, kill him. I think he's matured, kill him. And he orders one of the people to again violate and kill him. And that's when Sayyidah Zainab salamullah alayha, she then hugs him and says, she says that I swear by Allah that no one will touch him. You've killed my You've killed my brother, you've killed my nephews, you've killed all my family. I have no one left, I have no male left with me. Who will take me to Medina? Who will be my mahram to Medina? Who will travel with me? She says that if you have to kill him, then kill me first. And that's when Ibn Ziyad left them. Then Ibn Ziyad sends them to Damascus now. And there's many narrations about what happens in Damascus regarding the information. One narration says that when the information arrives to Yazid, he's upset. One narration says. One narration says he shows remorse. There's different narrations. But the thing is, with these narrations and what some people do, i.e. those people who try to defend Yazid, they try to use these narrations to substantiate, to show that Yazid was against the killing of Hussein. But what you have to do is, when you have these narrations, you have to look at not just two narrations. You have to take those two narrations and take all the narrations that are available, which are authentic, and then look at all of those narrations in the right authentic light, as a scholar, as a mu'arrikh, as a historian. The easy thing is to do is just take one narration and just quote a narration. But if you look at every narration which was narrated about the incidents in Damascus, actions speak louder than words. His actions don't show a person who's remorse. His actions show what? His actions show an arrogant man, show a person who's not upset. One of the reasons why he is upset, because now he realizes what? He realizes that till the day of judgment, this ummah will be cursing me. He says the Muslims will hate me. And that's not a doubt. Who are the two most hated personalities in Islam? In Islamic history, two of the most hated personalities are Yazid and Hajjaj bin Yusuf. Whenever you mention a name, does anyone say anything good about Yazid? No one says anything good. Whenever you mention Hajjaj is such an evil man. He murdered over 120,000 Muslims at one time. Can you imagine the first mass murder of the Muslims? Hajjaj bin Yusuf. That's his title. And the ulama say that if you got 100 hypocrites together and you put them all together, they will still not be worse than Hajjaj. Hajjaj will be even worse than all of them. 100 munafiqs on one time, on one side. That is who this man is. Then you have the incident, another narration which Imam Mahmud Alus al-Baghdadi, rahmatullah alayhi, the great Imam, he's been from the Ahlul Bayt too. He wrote a very famous tafsir called Ruh al-Ma'ani. It's an extremely famous, mashhur tafsir of the Quran. And he obviously was of the opinion that Yazid did fall out of the fold of Islam. He narrates a few incidents which I want to share. He says, firstly, what Yazid did was, when the news came to him from the messenger that Imam Hussain had been martyred, immediately he praised Allah and he was happy. He was extremely joyful. He then called for a certain number of days of celebration in Damascus to celebrate the death of Hussain radiyallaho anhu. Astaghfirullah. Then he began to drink more alcohol and indulge in more indulges that he used to indulge in. There was no remorse at all in him. And even to such an extent that when Imam Hussein's head was brought to him inside Damascus in his gathering, again he was even pointing at the lips of Imam Hussain. So the question is, if he had any regret, why did he behave in such a way? One narration says that he sent them back to Medina, which they did go back to Medina. And Imam Zain al-Abidin went back with them to Medina, and the convoy went back. He gave them money, but it's cheap giving money. What does it mean? Because we know from Baytul Mal, the money of the Muslims, the bank of the Muslims, certain people have a right to that money. The poor have a right to it. The miskeen have a right to it. The members of the Ahlul Bayt have an allowance from that. For example, at the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, Umar used to have an allowance that he used to give monthly to the Sahaba that participated in Badr and the ones who participated in Uhud. Their allowance was more than other ones. So we know the Baytul Mal was kept for that. So what they were getting wasn't from Yazid, it was from the Muslims. It was from the wealth of the Muslims. And Yazid thought that he could just give this money to them. And then what Yazid says is he apologized. Look at this. He's apologizing to Zainab radiallahu anha. And he's saying to Imam Zain al-Abidin, I never ordered the killing of Hussain radiallahu anhu. This is what he's saying. And immediately when they go, look at his actions now. Again, they say actions speak louder than words. So let's look at his actions. Do his actions do his actions show us a man that's remorse? It doesn't show us that it's remorse. What is the second thing that he does? The second biggest dhulm that he does is he orders Muslim bin Uqba. Initially he wrote a letter. But just to finish one point, after he did that, one narration says, there are three narrations now about where Imam Hussein's head is. One narration says that it was buried in Karbala alongside his honorable body. That's a narration predominantly that the Shia follow. Predominantly they accept that opinion. Another narration says that his head went to Cairo, and a lot of the Egyptian ulama adhere to that. Even in Cairo you go opposite Khan Yunus, Khan Khalil, which is an open market, right opposite the Azhar Mosque, Al-Azhar Sharif. Alhamdulillah, I've been there many times. It's a beautiful, it's a very spiritual place. One narration is that his head Mubarak was there. The most authentic narration is what? That his head Mubarak went back to Jannat al-Baqi. And say that Zainab took him back and she buried him in Jannat al-Baqi. So there are three aqwal in regards to that. And we realize that in regards to what they do. So one narration is what? It was buried in Karbala. One narration was that the honorable head was taken to Medina al-Munawwara, and one was that it was in Egypt. So these are different variations of narrations that have been narrated by these people. So now let's look at what he does. After he orders the killing of Imam Hussain and he did whatever he did, let's look at his actions now. The first thing that Yazid does, the first ultimate thing he does, he writes a letter to Ibn Ziyad. Now, let me put it one way to you. If you do something wrong, you apprehend a person. The job of a person is, and we know from the narrations when someone would do something against the Muslims, if he was a governor, Umar would remove him from his post. Umar radiyallaho anhu is, and you should all study his life. I would recommend you all to buy any book on the life of Umar radiyallahu anhu. He's one of the giant and great personalities of Islam. If you want to really study justice and adl, and you want to know how Islam is just and how Islam is a beautiful system, you have to study the life of Umar. Umar sets a high standard, a very high standard, and anyone that came after him could never fulfill that standard. It was such a high standard, radiallahu anhu, such a beautiful standard. So if you look at his actions as a person, Yazid, he doesn't remove Ibn Ziyad from his position. He doesn't apprehend him. He doesn't arrest him. He doesn't play blood money towards the Shuhada. The 72 members of the Shuhada from Karbala, he doesn't pay no blood money. He doesn't compensate them. He doesn't humiliate Ibn Ziyad. In fact, what he does, he promotes Ibn Ziyad. Now that isn't a sign of a man who has remorse. If he really had remorse for the killing of Imam Hussain, he would have done something, but he never. What does he do? He then writes a letter to Ibn Ziyad. And he says to Ibn Ziyad, I want you now to go to Medina al-Munawwara, and I want you to fight in Medina. And go to Medina al-Munawwara, give them 3 days to make the bay'ah to me. If they refuse to give the bay'ah, you can do anything in 3 days, it's halal upon you. Do whatever you want to, but make sure you teach them a lesson and subjugate the people to me. Ibn Ziyad, when he gets the letter, even Ibn Ziyad now has shame. He says, I will not do this for this disgusting fajr. One narration says. One narration says, I will not do this for this fasik. I will not do another sin. I've already killed the son of the Prophet, he said. Ibn Ziyad said, I've already killed the son of the Prophet. I'm not going to go now and attack Medina. That was like a red line for him. So what does he do? He sends an army under the leadership of Muslim bin Uqba, one of his generals. He comes into Medina, he gives them, because in Medina you have people, Abdullah bin Hanzala radiallahu anhu, the Sahabi, very famous Sahabi, Abdullah bin Hanzala. Who is Abdullah bin Hanzala? Can anyone remember him? He is the one that when he passed away, no one did his ghusl, but the angels gave it. The angels gave his ghusl, radiallahu anhu warda. And Abdullah bin Hanzala is that Sahabi that when he went to Damascus to meet Yazid, he came back and they said to him, oh, what did you think of Yazid? He says, I swear by Allah that man's cursed. He says, I thought that Allah was going to rain upon us rocks from the heavens of fire. Rocks that are on fire from the heavens. They said, why? He says, don't you know he believes in the nikah, that he marries a woman and then he marries her mother and then he marries her sister. And in Sharia, it's in the Quran, if you marry I married to my wife, as long as I'm married to my wife, I cannot do nikah with her sister, it's haram. If I divorce my wife or my wife passes away, then my nikah is permissible with her. But you can't, and that's same with the mother. Yazid was the man that used to do nikah with a person, the woman, then he would do nikah with the mother, and then do the nikah with the clear contradiction of the Sharia, clear contradiction of the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that is the reason why Imam al-Baghdadi rahmatullah alayhi says, he says that when you make the halal into haram, you become a kafir. Based upon that, Yazid is a non-Muslim. That was his ruling. Another ruling that he gave was that when Yazid fulfilled the killing, what did Yazid say? I forgot to mention this. His mukhtalif narrations, he says, today I have avenged the day of Badr. He says, I wish my forefathers were alive today, for if they were alive today, they would have been happy. For I, the son of Abu Sufyan, his grandfather, I've avenged the day of Badr. A'udhu billah. Imam al-Baghdadi says, based on that, he's a kafir. Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani says, based upon that, that is the reason why the ulama called him a non-Muslim. There's different variations of that. So they come there, Abdullah bin Hanzala has mentioned this point, the Muslims refused to give bay'ah. What did they do? He comes to Medina al-Munawwara. I'm going to conclude soon, inshallah. What did he do? He comes to Medina al-Munawwara and he says to the people, give bay'ah. They refuse to give bay'ah. For 3 days, there was no adhan in the Prophet's masjid. Al-Amasah was mentioning today in the Jum'ah. For 3 days, there was no adhan. There was one guy called Sa'ad bin Musayyib radiyallaho. Who's Sa'ad bin Musayyib? He is amongst one of the senior of the tabi'een. And he was a student of Aisha radiallahu anha. He studied with he narrated hadith from Ibn Abbas. In fact, he narrated hadith from well over 50 Sahaba. If you look at any book on Asma Rijal and come across the name Sa'ad bin Musayyib, it will give you a list of all the Sahaba that he directly took hadith from. He's a strong tabi'i. He says that when they come into Medina al-Munawwara's masjid, he says, I pretend to act like a madman, so that they would leave me. I'm scared for my life. When they see him, the soldiers say, he's a madman, leave him in the masjid. He says, I am the only one for 3 days, I am the only one that's allowed in the masjid. He says, what do I see? He says, in the masjid I see that the minbar that the Prophet used to stand on and gave the khutbah, the minbar that Abu Bakr would stand on, the minbar that Umar would stand on, the minbar that Uthman would stand on, the minbar that Ali radiallahu anhu wa ridwanullahu alayhim ajma'in, upon all of them would stand on. He says, I found the urination of the animals and the discredit of the animals on that minbar. Imagine even a normal minbar here in this masjid. Can you imagine if, God forbid, someone allowed a dog in this masjid right now, and that dog was to do something on the minbar? What would you do to such a person? You would probably kill the person, you would probably hit him, you would behave in a way which would not be nice. You wouldn't call the person a good person, would you? That if you bought, so could you imagine bringing the animals on horses in the masjid of the Prophet, and that urination got so close to even the road of the Prophet ﷺ. Feces were there, unbelievable, disgusting things were left in the masjid. He says, for 3 days I never heard the adhan. They prohibited anyone to give the adhan. Sa'ad bin Musayyib says, Wallahi, I used to hear that. He says, I never knew when the namaz salah was. He says, I never knew because I never left the masjid. All I was hearing was screams and crying in Medina. He says, I've never heard in my life that scare. He says, that screaming was so scary, I've never heard it. It frightens people. Why? Because that for 3 days they were killing people. Medina had blood up to its knees. Can you imagine? 51 years earlier, Medina is a city that the Prophet was teaching. 51 years earlier, the Prophet ﷺ is sitting there teaching his Sahaba, and the Sahaba, Umar is there. Could you imagine? Could you ever imagine there would come a day after Umar or after Ali or the Sahaba that Medina would have blood up to its knees? You could never imagine it. And it's up to its knees high. Sa'ad bin Musayyib says, I don't even know what time the Dhuhr or Asr or Maghrib or Isha is. He says, when did I knew or how did I knew it was time for Salah? He said, I used to hear the adhan directly from the road of the Prophet ﷺ. Directly from the Prophet's Rawda, I would hear the adhan, then I knew the salah, then I used to pray. That is one of the miracles of the Prophet ﷺ. And look what he did. And what did the Prophet say in the hadith of Sahih? It's in Sahih Muslim. It's in where? Not a weak hadith, it's an authentic hadith. The Prophet said, those who frighten Medina, the people of Medina, may Allah will frighten them on Yawm al-Qiyamah. The people who frighten the Ahli Medina, the people of Medina, Allah will, that's why, what did they teach you? What did Al-Razi says in his tafsir? Al-Razi on the surah, وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى. On that very surah, Al-Razi gives a tafsir. He mentions a unique point of understanding. He says, you are walking and you come across a shoelace. You come across what? That shoelace touched the shoes and the sandals of the Prophet ﷺ. It never touched the Prophet, it touched what? The sandals. Imam Razi says, showing disrespect to that shoelace means that you become a non-Muslim. Look at it. Imam Hussain this, Al-Razi. Not me. Al-Razi is a giant Imam, a great scholar. This is the adab, the respect you have even to the shoelaces that don't belong to the Prophet, but just touch his honorable shoes. They don't even touch his feet. You see, that is the adab you have for that. And look at the adab that this man has. The Prophet said what in another hadith? He says, those who scare the people of Medina, Allah's la'na is upon them. Those who scare the people of Medina, He will be in hellfire. So who ordered all of that? Who ordered it? Could you imagine? 1,000 women were raped on that day in Medina Munawwarah. It's never happened in the history of Islam. It's a challenge. Look at the history of Islam. From wherever the dhulm happened against the Muslims in Baghdad or anywhere, nothing like this ever happened in Medina, either before it or after it. No fear of Allah. Ibn Kathir mentions very clear. Ibn Kathir says, 1 year later, 1,000 illegitimate children were born in Medina Munawwarah. And who were these women? They were not normal women. These were the wives of the Sahaba. These were the daughters of the Sahaba. So you tell me, if such a person could do such a evil act and he ordered it, and there's no doubt, this is the funny thing. Not a funny thing, but this is a unique thing that Allah protected. On Imam Hussain, they bring, there's doubt. He never did it. Fine, no problem. Let's even leave that for a moment. Does anyone in the historians, does any single historian deny that Yazid ordered the attack of Medina al-Hurr, the Battle of Hurra, some call it? Did he deny it? None of the scholars said Yazid ordered it. And he gave the order. So you tell me, if a person could behave in such a disgusting manner with his soldiers who are apparently Muslims and say that you can do this dhulm in the city of the Prophet ﷺ, in the city of Nur, the city of light. And remember, Medina is that place which contains Jannah. It's greater than even the Kaaba. The narration is clear. On Yawm al-Qiyamah, the Kaaba will be destroyed. Al-Haram will be destroyed. Mecca will be destroyed. Medina will be destroyed. The only part that will not be destroyed will be the Rawda of the Prophet ﷺ, ila Riyadul Jannah. That is muttafaqun alayh for all the ulama. None of the ulama disagree on that. That's why Medina has a greater fada'il than even Mecca. That is why the ulama prefer going to Medina. Obviously, 100,000 prayers in one place in Mecca, that's another issue. That's about praying. But in fadila, in greatness, that's why the Prophet said what? He says, oh Allah, bless this city more than Medina. And that's when Fathul Mecca happened in the 8th Hijri. The Ansar was like, the Prophet's going to leave us now. The Prophet said, I will never leave you. I will be buried, I will live with you. I migrated with you. And he lived in Medina, and the wisdom behind that, why did he stay in Medina? So that people could visit Medina al-Munawwarah then. And that's why people go in their millions. So you tell me, someone who behaved in such a way, how can you, in any right mind, praise him or attempt to defend him? I came across one book by a person, I don't want to mention his name, but it's like he mentions all the tribulations of Karbala, And then when it comes to Yazid, he starts mentioning doubtful things. Or he had remorse, and I'm like, why did you mention such a thing? What is the intention behind you doing such a thing? So you see this form of what we call Nasbism, Nawasib we call it. Nawasib is what? It's a form of having hatred towards the Prophet's family. People hide it in them. People don't expose it to other people. They hide that hatred for Ahlul Bayt in them. That when you mention their names, you can see the fire, and you can see how they become agitated a bit. They become a bit uncomfortable. It's an unfortunate reality, and it's something that Yazid himself did, and something he ordered. And may Allah give us tawfiq to learn from these 10 days. We went through over 10 days, and I was speaking to the brothers, inshallah. What we are thinking of doing is very soon is do something on the seerah. I thought that would be better, because we did say we want to start the life of the Khulafa, but we thought it's more respect to start with the Prophet's life first. But you know, he's Uswatul Hasana, he's the best example. So we think at least for 8 weeks, once a week, for a few hours, to go through the Prophet's life in one of the classical texts, and to study his shama'il, his behavior and so forth. So we will do that, and with that we pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bless us. Do you have any questions at all? Mahmoud, you know? Yes, mashallah.
Do you know the companions of Imam Hussain and the family? Were people allowed to bury them?
That's a very. You mean Imam Hussain, yeah? No problem. Yeah. Thank you very much for asking a good question, which unfortunately I should have covered at the beginning. What happened was, Umar bin Saad read the funeral prayer of all of the people that passed away on his side, but all of the people that were martyred, the companions and the followers of Imam Hussain, no one was allowed to read their funeral prayer. It was prohibited. Then people from Banu Asad, which was one of the tribes, local tribes, they then came and then they did the janazah, read the prayer over them, and then they buried the Ahlul Bayt, and they buried the martyrs of Karbala. And another narration says that after this happened, when the Kufans heard that this happened, they came and they threw so much water on that area that they weren't even still happy that, you know, even after burying them, even after killing them and humiliating them, they were still wanting to dig up the graves of these honorable people. So yes, they were buried, but they were buried afterwards, after the armies have left. But they weren't buried by the Kufans, it was buried by the people from Banu Asad. Imams, at that time, Imams, there's mukhtalif narrations, some say early 20s. He wasn't senior at all in age, in regards to that. And he was and that's one narration, but that narration is a weak narration. Why? Because Ali al-Akbar, his elder brother, was 19 years old. So it contradicts that. That's one narration Ibn Kathir gives. The most likely he was, you know, he was going towards his teenager age, you know, years. He wasn't either young. That is the reason when Shimr looks at him, he says, look at him and find out whether he's a man now, so we can kill him. And another thing, he had a quality, he looked more younger than he is actually age 2, radiyallaho anhu.
10 days, people were there, was it? The armies, the cavalry of the everybody.
Only for Imam Hussain and his followers. So obviously they took in charge of the water, so they had access to the water, drinking the water for themselves, for their animals, for their horses. But for Imam Hussain, they refused for 3 days. They'll be talking for the 3 days they refused, from the 7th. Some narration says the full 10, but what we do know is that before that, some of Imam Hussein's people did actually go and get the water from there. But then what happened was Ibn Ziyad wrote a letter. I don't remember if I can pick your mind. When Umar bin Saad sent the 3 proposals of what Imam Hussain wanted to do, and then when he was going to agree to it, and then Shimr made him change his mind. When he sent that letter, he wrote under the letter too, he says prevent him from having a sip of water. treat him the way that the people treated Uthman bin Affan. A'udhu billah. And that's a sick thing to say. No, you don't represent Uthman bin Affan. If someone has right to Uthman bin Affan, it was Hussein. He was his bodyguard outside his house. Ali radiyallaho anhu left Hussain Karimain to protect him, and it was Uthman that sent them all away. And to now claim that you are somehow Marwan, even though they're related to each other, or even Muawiyah, that they have some right, it doesn't make sense. Muawiyah is different because he was a cousin and he's a Sahabi, and we respect him radiallahu anhu. But someone like Marwan has no right at all, you know. He's the cause. This is mentioned by Shah Abdul Aziz ibn Muhaddis al-Delbi rahmatullah alayhi. He says the cause of the killing of Uthman was Marwan. He says no one can deny it. And Shah Abdul Aziz says another thing in his Fatawa Aziziyah, and Tuhfatul Ithmatul Ashra, another book he wrote in rebuttal to the people who believe in the 12 groups. He says one of the conditions of loving the Ahlul Bayt is to curse Marwan. He says you can't be a lover of the Ahlul Bayt and not curse him. And even though some people try to praise him, may Allah protect us. Anything else? For us in Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah is haram. It's not allowed. To bet is haram. Totally haram. There's no, the Shia allow it according to their own fiqh. That's their law, that's their, that's their way, we leave it to them. But for us it's haram, totally haram. The ulama give karaha, they said you should keep away from it. It's not haram because to make something haram, this is a point of usul. One of the problems we have is everyone makes everyone into a kafir and to a Muslim nowadays. For example, denying the suhbah of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu is kufr. It's clear cut. Not the Shia don't deny it. They accept it. Why? Because if you deny Abu Bakr's suhbah and his companionship, you're denying the Quran. ثاني اثنين إذ هما في الغار إذ يقول لصاحبه لا تحزن إن الله معنا. It's in the Quran. Allah used the word sahibihi. So that's proven from the Nas al-Quran. If something's in the Quran, to deny it becomes kufr, clear cut. To make something haram, this is a rule that you should understand. Haram can only be made by Allah and His Prophet ﷺ. Apart from Allah and His Prophet, no one can make anything haram. You can make it makruh, and the makruh has makruh tahrimi, makruh tanzihi. The Hanafi have two types of makruh, minor and major. The Shafi'i is called makruh, and the Malik is called dislike. And then you need evidences for that. For us, the fatwa that was given in Al-Migiri and in other books of fatwa Zahiriya and other fatwa books that have been written, to pit and to watch it is karaha, is disliked. You shouldn't do it. It's not haram, but it's disliked.
Last point, it is proven as the Imam Hussain ordinary people can make mistakes. How come they're scholarly? I mean, I've seen this quite disturbing clips. That's what we're doing at. It's from the Hadith set. It's clearly saying blatantly this is the biggest lie, the biggest lie ever made.
Let them say, brother, let them say whatever they want to be. Brother, if someone can murder Hussein, why should it shock us what a scholar says? If people could murder and violate Imam Hussain radiallahu anhu, have no fear of Allah, it doesn't matter what they say. Let them do what they say. You will be with those who you love in Yawm al-Qiyamah. If you love Yazid, you will be with Yazid. We love Hussein, we will be with Hussein radiallahu anhu. Finish. And we don't support him, we don't like him, we hate the and it's the ayah of Mubalaha, it's in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called Hassanin, Karimain, Fatima. It's maybe another subject, another day, maybe a khutbah you could give on about that challenge from the Christians from Najran. It's a beautiful area that you study how the Prophet did that. Anything else at all? May Allah reward. Yes, Bismillah. Sorry, what was that? ultimate lesson, in my humble opinion, is re-evaluating how much love we have for his family, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I think the biggest lesson that we can all learn from Karbala is that one, we shouldn't abandon the Ahlul Bayt because of other people, and we should make these days to remember them. And it shouldn't just be a day for 10 days. We should remember the Ahlul Bayt throughout our life, and also remember the Sahaba, because we are what Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. We don't love one over another. We love the Ahlul Bayt, Ridwanallahu alayhim ajma'in, but at the same time we also love the Sahaba, Ridwanallahu alayhim ajma'in. Both the Ahlul Bayt and the Sahaba are our role models. So we just don't, we love the Sahaba and we love the Ahlul Bayt, and both are our role models. So I think the ultimate lesson is that sabr, patience, love, affection, familyhood, being together as family, loving each other, knowing what a relationship between a father and son is, and so forth. Anything else at all? May Allah reward you, Jazakallah khair. Yes.
Just one last one. I just want to say no question. I just want to say on behalf of myself, and I think everybody else that's been present over the last 10 days, I think we just want to show you gratitude and thank you for.
Just do dua for him.
May Allah bless you for the effort that you put.
This is all reward of Imam Hussain. I did it, so I get a reward, alhamdulillah. So
I think the lessons that I think all of us have taken and learned from this 10 days have been massive, and inshallah, I hope and pray that our perception of the Ahlul Bayt will change.
Inshallah, Jazakallah khair. May Allah reward you, and may Allah reward all of us. It's not my job, it's Brother Mahmoud. Thank you to you, Brother Umar, the designers, everyone, yourselves, brothers, everyone who came for every day, especially Asad and Ubaid has disappeared. Ubaid even, mashallah, came towards the end of it, which is a good thing to have, especially having the young students, because a lot of the stuff you say is maybe a bit too much for them, but for even them to come, it really reinforces that we have to work on our youth, inshallah. So we pray for them. So let's do our prayer.